Hello and welcome back to the Creating Value in Schools podcast with me, Liz Worthen, where we talk about ways to work sustainably and flourish in your school life. And today we're shining a light on a role that doesn't always get much attention or may even be misunderstood: the personal assistant to the head teacher. Spoiler alert, it's not all about booking meetings. I'm joined by Milli Cowling, who's had a long career working in schools, the last 10 of them as PA to the head teacher of Woodbridge Park Education Service, a multi-site alternative provision. We'll hear from Milli about how her role has changed, why it gets misunderstood, the range of skills it takes, from good judgment to emotional intelligence, balance, communication and trust, and how professional and partnership development are vital to the role. Insight, influence and impact will all be featuring. Let's dive in. Welcome, Milli. It's lovely to have you on the podcast. And this is a first, as we haven't interviewed a head teacher's personal assistant or PA before. And I'm really looking forward to shedding more light on this role. But let's start off, Milli, by tell us about a day in the life of a head teacher's PA. What might a day look like for you? Is there any such thing as a typical day?
Well, thank you, Liz, for inviting me on your podcast. First of all, a day in the life of a head teacher's PA is never quite the same twice. You can have a perfectly planned day, and that can instantly change because I think schools are of that nature. For me, the day starts very early. I like to get into work fairly early, I would say. I think that's the best part of the day, to pick up any emails, anything that's left from the day before, and just check the teacher's diary for the week, the day, and get that early clarity, because I think that really helps support the rest of the day. Where I work is a split site provision across the borough. So the head teacher and I aren't always on the same site at the same time. So when we are, we always start with a morning catch up for about half an hour. We check priorities, deadlines for the day, and anything emerging for the rest of the week, really. So just to make sure that we're on the same page with which direction we're going in for the rest of the week, really, I think. If there's a leadership meeting that morning, I make sure everything is prepared for the team so they can focus on their decision making. After that meeting will finish, I'll come out and I will check in with my own team, because I think that personal connection is really important. And even more so because we are a split site provision. So I don't always get to see my members of my team every single day. And I think because it's such a relational role, that element of checking in with your team is really important as well. And it just builds up, you get a sense of the atmosphere as well amongst the staff. So I think that's really important. The rest of the day is planned work, supporting the head teacher, filtering requests as and when they come through, and dealing with the unexpected as well. And generally being the available face of the head teacher. So it's a combination of judgment, communication, and building relationships at all levels within the school community.
Yeah, I think that's something that's come through very clearly actually in the reading I've been doing as well, is that importance of building relationships. But I did just want to ask, Milli, when you say you come in early, tell us, how early is early?
I like to be into work for about 7 o'clock.
Okay, yeah.
Like I said, it's quiet. It's a good time to catch up on any bits and pieces, I think.
Yes, have a little bit of clear time before the craziness of the day begins. And you refer to your team, so just tell us, who do you then line manage? Who's in your team?
I manage a group of admin staff across the different sites, so they will have different roles that they deal with for the different sites that they work at. So yeah, I manage a group of them.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. Because I'm aware, because the role is quite different, isn't it? It can vary quite considerably, I'm sure, setting to setting in terms of line management responsibilities, or
Yeah.
who line manages you, or what the responsibilities comprise. It's like some PAs also may have a role as a clerk, won't they? They might be quite involved in governance and things like that. So yeah, it's interesting. And yeah, so tell us, how You've been in your role, I think, for nearly 10 years. Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah. And have you seen the role change in that time?
It definitely has changed. I've worked with 3 different head teachers, all with very different leadership styles. But I came into education about 20 odd years ago. I started out working on reception for a short period of time. And I was then moved to an admin role that focused on HR elements. And it gave me an understanding of the wider school community, how schools function, how systems are in place, and also the pressures that schools face. And even they face them now, don't they, as well? So, but at that level, I was working with staff across the board. I wasn't just dealing with parents, it was staffing at all levels, really, which I really enjoyed. And at that school, I also served as a staff governor, which helped me understand long term planning and organisational strategy. So that's how I came about within education. For the last 10 years, I've worked at Woodbridge, and as I mentioned, I've worked with 4 different head teachers, all with very different leadership styles. But I think schools have become more complex. The role has expanded with that complexity, and what was once seen as diary management, meeting admin, is now sitting at a much broader portfolio, I think. And PAs are now sitting on leadership teams, they're contributing to school priorities, and they're holding responsibility where it used to sit elsewhere within the school. So, in many ways, it's quite difficult to describe in one neat sentence what it is because it spans so many different layers of the school community and what you do. So, yeah, someone described this role as the engine room of the school, basically, because when I look at it, yes, that's true because it's where information happens, timing, coordination, all of those things come together. But you're also safeguarding the condition of your leaders to do their job properly, and the best that they can as well. So you often take away those things that can be sold before it reaches them. So you're making a lot of judgment calls. And I think that complexity has changed from the service level task and being reactive. So I think another thing that's also changed is the contribution that you make to the direction of the school because you have such a wide lens of the organization and you naturally spot patterns. And you sometimes have to feed those things into leadership conversations because, when you raise something, you want it to be addressed. And ultimately, that shapes culture within schools. So, it's that quiet contribution.
It's really interesting, yeah, hearing you talk about the range of skills that are needed, because I think as well, one of the things I've heard you say is you do feel that the role of the PA can be a very misunderstood one. Why do you think that is? How does that happen?
I think it's happened because schools have become so complex. And I think the role definitely has evolved much faster than the language around it. So people see PA and they think it's just admin. But it's a role that's far more than booking meetings or travel coordination. It's a role that holds a lot of organisational insights. It's moved from, like I said, being reactive to task, and it sits in the background. It is strategic work, even if it happens quietly. And those are those things that we've absorbed and we've just carried on and just got on with it, really. I think that's what's happened. Which brings me back to sort of relationships and balance because you are the eyes and ears of the head teacher and you notice when something is wrong and you pick up on the atmosphere. And it's important to raise those things as well. So I think you're holding a lot of influence from a very different perspective because the role itself sits in a very unique space. It's close to leadership, connected to staff, aware of the operational detail as well, because you are able to see, the bigger picture. And I think that's what's misunderstood because you can have a different viewpoint of things. And I think it's important to say those things as well, because that demonstrates a balanced viewpoint, actually. So, yeah, I think that's why it's so misunderstood, is because all of these things happened, but the language around it just didn't keep up.
That was really interesting, isn't it? Actually, how we speak about things, or how we
Yeah.
describe a role, maybe, or how we put it in the job description, all of these things, and contribute to perceptions.
Yeah.
Enabling people working in schools to flourish in their roles so they can have a positive impact on outcomes for children and young people is what we're all about at Creating Value in Schools. To get practical tips, resources and insights delivered straight to your inbox, sign up for our newsletter, link in the description. Now back to the show. So do you feel like things, because I feel like there was a time when, was it as the head teacher's PA, one of your prime jobs was gatekeeper, to kind of try and not have everybody coming through the door or everything landing with the head teacher's ear. But it sounds like what you're talking about is a more nuanced role, as you say. It's more about building relationships, noticing things, seeing what's going on. Tell us a bit more about the kind of skills that it takes to be a good PA.
I think definitely it's a huge amount of discretion that you have to have, and emotional intelligence. You hold confidential information. You do sit beside leadership, but you also are part of the wider staff team as well. And you have to strike that balance, and you have to be approachable, and you have to be trusted as well with the rest of, the school community. So I think trust is essential, communication is essential, adaptability is key. Like I mentioned before, because of the way schools are, you could have a perfectly planned morning and that can completely change at a drop of a hat. So, you have to be adaptable in that kind of way as well, because you are sometimes dealing with the unexpected, and sometimes you're the problem solver as well. You need to manage those competing priorities and stay calm under pressure.
So you might be in situations, where there are people who want something urgently, or maybe some crisis has arisen. And so I guess, yes. And there's that need, as you said, for your discretion and professionalism. So I imagine it's a role where, as well as needing to manage your own emotions, you're also sort of managing other people's emotions.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think so. And that's why I think it's so misunderstood, because I think PAs have been drawn into organizational spaces, and we've absorbed all of these things around us. It's not just meeting admin and booking things. It is all those other elements that come together now. And I think we've just carried on with it. We've just taken it on board. But we've stepped into those gaps, and we've held those threads together, I think. Yeah, I think it's quiet leadership in a way, I would say.
I like that. That's a lovely term, quiet leadership. Yeah.
Because you are, like you say, you're gatekeeping as well. But you have to make that judgment call as well. If
Mm.
someone comes to you with something, what are the correct channels? Do they have to see the head teacher immediately? Can it be resolved elsewhere? You have to make that call sometimes. Obviously, there's things that do need to go straight to the head teacher, but also it's about protecting their time and their capacity, because you want them to do their best job as well, don't you?
And so I imagine actually your relationship with the head teacher is a very key one, isn't it? You need to have that working relationship. So tell us a bit, what's it been like to work with 3 or 4 different head teachers? Have you kind of had to re-establish things each time?
Sometimes you do, yes. Everyone has their own leadership style. And I don't think that should be seen as a threat. I think it should be seen as an opportunity to learn new things. And it's about communication more than anything else. And once you have an understanding of how that leader works, what they want from you as well, and that threads into partnership working, because if you don't have that, you're going to struggle. You want good communication. You want that understanding with your leader, but you also want to work at your strengths as well. You want the best out of each other. So, yeah, I mean, for me, it's been really insightful working with different leaders of different styles. And, sometimes some are quite happy doing certain things, some will delegate things to you, and so on. So it is about adaptability again, isn't it?
That's right. Yes. Everyone has slightly different preferences, and I'm sure you as well try and share ways of working that you found helpful.
Yeah.
And so it's a two-way process.
Yeah. You sometimes have to just, work at what's working well, what isn't working well, what's slipping, how can we make things better? And it's about those conversations.
What would you say are some of the tougher parts of the role that people find, or for you?
I think it's the isolation of the role because of where you sit within the school. And again, it brings me back to, having those professional boundaries with the rest of the community. 'Cause your relationships with the rest of the school do change slightly. You you have to work at that as well. You have to keep that distance. You have to keep that discretion as well. So I would say that's probably, you know, one of the toughest things. But you also want to be approachable, and you do have a level of emotional intelligence to be able to do that as well. I would say that's probably one of the toughest parts. But it's tough if you make it tough.
Do you have other PAs that you're in contact with? Yeah. Do you have a kind of support network when you do want to offload at the end of the day, or there's a situation that you want to talk about? Where do you go?
There is a borough network group that we have, but I also think it's you have those external outlets as well. Sometimes you just need to bounce around a few ideas, don't you?
Yeah, because I know one of the things is that you're quite passionate about is professional development, isn't it? And professional development for PAs. Because is there much out there currently?
I think there's more progression now, and I think it's becoming part of the conversation now that the role is being understood. And I think it's a career in its own right. But I think those early career conversations are the ones that you should have with your head teacher. I think that's a good starting point. I know I did that many years ago. I asked for more involvement, more responsibility, and opportunities really to stretch my judgment. And I think it's those things, when you have that conversation, it helps strengthen your partnership working with your head teacher as well, because you can support them, but you also need what do they want from you as well. It's almost I'm having the tools to do your job. How can I best support my head teacher? Because sometimes you do need to have those conversations. So I think if you're interested in HR, operations, governance, suggest that you want to be involved, you want more involvement. And I think there's so many different variations of the role of a PA from school to school because schools function differently. Some schools have their own HR department. Some PAs might be involved in HR. So if you are interested in those things, I think have those early career conversations because everyone's development is going to look different, but take ownership as well because these things aren't going to come to you as well. Borough-wide networks are emerging. There's more leadership-focused development opportunities as it becomes more better understood. And, things like coaching, leadership programs, collaboration with different schools, that they're all worth exploring. And that said, I think formal courses give a structured learning to you, but I think also development can look like a conversation that you've had with somebody, reading a book, a podcast,
Absolutely.
and be curious to those things. Curiosity opens the doors to a lot of things. It builds confidence and it helps you step into more strategic spaces, I think. And, CPD is meaningful when you put that learning into workplace practice and the application matters, I think. So, like I said, it's going to look different for everybody. Ask for it. There are pathways and, seek out those opportunities because they're not naturally going to come to you.
And I suppose that's the important thing to note, isn't it? Still, yes, there's not the case necessarily that there are accepted standard pathways. You can develop in the role in ways you want to. You can potentially specialize, or you can seek opportunities to specialize. But yeah, it's about asking those questions, being curious. And again, that relationship with your head teacher. Because again, I think we talked about previously, didn't we? I can imagine if your head teacher is also your line manager, they're like your key working relationship. They're also your line manager. That could be potentially interesting. And I think in the article you wrote for Schools Week, you talked about having the conversations with your head teacher or other staff members to find out about the value that you can bring and what you really want from me and how can I develop. Where do you feel you've been able to add value, or what do you look back on and think, okay, that was some things I did where I can really see an impact?
I think impact is different. There's so many different forms of impact. I think it can sometimes be something that no one really sees, but you've done something in the background, for example, and you've protected the head teacher's time, and you've created space in the day after a difficult meeting that they may have had. Um, so you're protecting their capacity, and don't overschedule them. That's an impact on them. That's an impact on their well-being as well, more than anything. But it's the work in the background, I think, that you hold. It's not necessarily always at the forefront, but it does show up. And I think, achievements come through service as well. Listening to a member of staff so they feel heard. It could be through a coaching conversation that you've had with someone, just to give someone a different perspective, that time to pause, that space to think, and helping them in that way. And I think that kind of impact is really valuable to staff across the community, I think. But it can also be system improvements, how you implement a process that can help with workflow, how you've managed to reduce friction in an area. So it could be anything. Impact can look like anything, really.
It sounds like it comes back to that ideal. Sometimes it's the quiet leadership or the things in the background. And I think, and actually it's lovely you mentioned head teacher wellbeing, because actually that is a really important thing, isn't it? I think we're at a time when maybe fewer and fewer leaders actually want to be head teachers, or head teachers are at risk of burnout. We're losing them from schools, aren't we, from the profession?
Yeah, I think that overscheduling is really important. Do not overschedule them.
And so, yeah, for any other PAs who might be listening, or other people, tell us about, obviously, learning is important to you. And I love that idea of informal learning, because I think that's so true, isn't it? There's lots of different ways of learning on the job as well as the more formal courses. But yeah, is there anything you've been reading or listening to lately that's inspired you?
I'm drawn to books on leadership, culture, communication, because I think those really speak to the work that we do. I've just finished reading The Founder and Force Multiplier, which frames the PA and EA role as a partnership role, and it gives language to many PAs that they're already doing. So I would highly recommend it to any PA or any leader. I love listening to podcasts. I love reading books. Yeah, and just those conversations, with people, I think is really important. Just stretching your thinking. It always helps.
Yeah. I guess sometimes, yes, you should say taking the opportunity to get involved in things, or a new challenge.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I think the role it's changed so much, and people don't really see what it is. They don't realize what it is, but I think it's built on trust, communication, partnership, and those things quietly shape the rest of the school culture as well. I think it's definitely worth celebrating. And something else is the knowledge that PAs hold. It's the history, the relationships, patterns, pressure, all of those things which add value, I think. And contribution is measured by visibility. It's measured by impact as well. But if you're a PA and you're listening to this, be proud of the influence that you have. Be curious, ask for those opportunities, and don't be afraid to step into spaces that stretch you as well. And if you're a school leader, invest in your PA, because that partnership working is strong and everybody benefits from it ultimately, I think.
Thank you, Milli. Yes, that's a brilliant message to close on. The benefits of investment. Thank you very much for being with us and giving us more insights into the role of the PA. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz.
And thank you all for listening. I hope you feel encouraged to be curious, to ask for opportunities, or talk to your team members about how they step into a stretch space. For details of Milli's reading recommendation and other resources, check out the show notes. And if this episode has got you thinking, give us a like or let us know in the comments, and be sure to subscribe to future episodes. It helps other educators to find us too. Be back with you soon.